All right, everyone. In this video, we're going to wrap up the homework in Chapter 9, the workbook exercise portion of the homework. And in this problem, we're doing AP20B. And in this AP20B, it notes that we're looking at a merchandising business. We've got a large selling area with displays and shelves, smaller back office area where admin tasks are performed, such as payroll, marketing, and HR. Probably maybe accounting too. I don't know, it doesn't mention it, but that is an administrative function. That's important. The following information is available. Salaries are for the salespeople as well as the office staff, and office staff salaries totaled $80,000 for the year. The office area is allocated 20% of the utility costs, and depreciation is charged on the merchandise displays only. And then we've got kind of this summarized income statement here that just breaks it down in the way that we've sort of seen it up until this chapter of revenues minus expenses equal net income, right? There's no breakout of specific breakout of cost of goods sold and the multi-step income statement where we have selling and administrative expenses separated out, etc. And so we're going to want to take this summarized information here on the income statement and put it into a multi-step income statement format here. So we've got the space to do that. But there's a few little nuances here, some details that we need to look at first before we get into preparing the multi-step income statement. So here I've got a spot for us to do our calculations. So total salaries expense here says it's $210,000. And it tells us in the problem that the salaries are for both salespeople and office staff. The office staff salaries are $80,000 per year. And I'm just going to put this into accounting format, no decimals. And we know that the total is going to be $210,000. That's kind of already what it tells us by looking at the details. So if $80,000 is the office salary staff, $210,000 is the total, we can just take the difference between those to see that the salespeople salaries then would be $130,000. Right, so the total is 210. It tells us there's 80 that's office staff, and so the rest basically is salespeople staff. Okay, so that's important. We got that figured out. The office area, so the utility costs are allocated 20% to office area. So the total utilities cost here is $7,000. And then we can see this allocation of 20% to the office area and 80% to the sales area then basically. So we can take our office total cost times the 20% there to get us about $1,400 for the office allocation, and then the other 80% of $5,600 is for the sales area. And then if we add those together, it should equal the total. We're just allocating those out between the two different departments basically. And then the only other thing to note is depreciation being charged on merchandise display only means that that's going to be a sales expense, not an administrative expense. And we're going to separate sales and admin out in our income statement here. Okay, so let's start putting this thing together. Then we've got sales revenue, and we're going to basically just be, breaking this apart, detailing it a little different, nothing too tricky, hopefully. Okay, so then we've got cost of goods sold, and we can see there that was $890,000. And this basically sales revenue minus the cost of goods sold then gets us, or not net sales, but gross profit. If we did have sales returns and allowances or sales discounts noted here in our income statement, we would want to break that out, as a separate section to get to net sales. But we just have sales revenue. It doesn't appear to be any of the that otherwise. Let's put an underline here just to show as this is a summation. So 510,000 becomes our total for the, actually, I'm just curious. If I do, what if I do, I don't want the dollar sign. Sorry, I'm just playing around with my amounts notes here. Yeah, that's all fine and well. I think that looks funny. I'm going to take out the total there and just highlight it instead. Sorry, I'm just kind of looking at this thing and seeing what makes the most sense for me. Okay, so sales revenue minus cost of goods sold equals gross profit. And now let's drop down a line and talk about operating expenses. Expenses. And with our operating expenses, we've got two different departments like we were talking about. We have selling expenses. And let's do some indenting here. So we have selling expenses, and those include, like we mentioned above, we have depreciation expense. I'm just going to link up there. We have a portion of the salaries expense there. And we have a portion of the utilities expense. And so let's indent these twice, just to kind of show that it's like sort of a sub category there. And so depreciation expense in total is under the selling department. Salespeople salary we calculated there is $130,000, and the utilities expense portion for sales is the $5,600. And so the total selling expenses then, indent once, then become the sum of these three amounts, or $140,600. And then we're going to take a look at, and I'm just going to highlight that for totals. And then we're going to, undo the highlighting. Sometimes it's just a matter of preference, but let's not do it there. Okay, whoops. Oh, that's okay. Yeah, let's leave that. Administrative expenses. So this is going to be, and I think we're going to need one extra line though. So I'm going to put an extra insert a row. I'm going to say equals. We have insurance expense, which is going to be fully for the admin department. Then we've got, and let's do a format painter on this, get that the same. We've got office supplies expense. That's just a specific line item, for the administrative side. Then we've got our office salaries. And then we've got a portion of the utilities expense that's going to go to the admin department. So the salaries here, we broke those out, and then the utilities expense was allocated. And yep, our formula is up, just pulls all that together. So $135,400 becomes the total, not selling expenses, but we can update their administrative expenses. Administrative, I think I spelled that right. Let's see. Yep, spell check is good. Okay, so then we can say total operating expenses is the sum of these two departments then, equals $146,600 plus $135,400, or $276,000. And then we can get net income as a bottom line. I'm going to highlight totals here too. So total operating expenses, net income, and that will equal our gross profit minus our total operating expenses. Yeah, I'm just going to do a little highlighting there of $276,000 total operating expenses, which gives us net income of $234,000. So that matches up. The expenses and revenues didn't change from our summarized version that we see up here, but we've broken it out now to be able to see what gross profit was, and we can see departmental expenses broken out, and just allows us a little bit more detail. Oh, and there is one section here. So while I'm doing this video, I'm actually going to bring this over. You'll see this in your template version already, but let me just do a little screenshot snip to bring this little section over. And we'll have this bottom piece to say analysis. And I'll make a little answer spot here. And it'll say give, maybe it doesn't need to be that big. Let's delete that down a little bit. Okay, so give a reason why it is useful to separate expenses into selling and administrative categories. And let's say, companies can use this information to better track where costs are coming from within the organization, and this allows managers of different departments to budget their department resources more efficiently to reduce the costs they are responsible for. So it's kind of just a way of saying it allows the business to better track, the costs in general, and then you can have more responsibility given to certain managers, to say, hey, why are costs going up in your department here? Or they can just better budget in general and say, hey, we need more staff or something, and they can analyze the head count and sales or salaries expense and things of that nature. So just more detail the better. We can better track and analyze and understand the specific departments when we do more detailed breakouts, right? That's kind of the whole point of accounting to a larger degree, is just organizing these costs and business information in order to make decisions in general. So even a simplified version of this income statement, if you only saw net income, you wouldn't know anything about, well, what portion was sales, what was expenses at all. If this was the only number you saw, it would really be lacking some context of what the specifics of sales and different types of expenses. And so we're just going further down that path when we separate things out into separate departments, etc. And it allows us more and more detail to understand what is happening within the business at a more granular, detailed level. And that's generally always better. Sometimes summarized information is nice to have for off the cuff, quick analysis or quick presentations, but it is really valuable to have more detail underneath. So when you want to do further analysis, the information is there and it's accessible. So, all right. Well, thanks everybody. Appreciate you following along our video series here for chapter 9. And thanks so much. And I will talk to y'all soon.